Hi, my favorite readers. It's Miss Miranda here. Tonight we have a really special story to share with you. It is the story of Anne Frank, and it comes from the series called Little People, Big Dreams, and it's one of our favorite series to read in Room 22. It's all about young people who had a huge impact on our world, and tonight we're going to learn about how Anne Frank impacted our world. It's written by Isabel Sanchez Vergara and illustrated by Sveta Doroshiva. So let's get started learning about Anne Frank. Anne was a little Jewish girl who was born in Germany. She lived happily with her parents and her older sister Margot in the city of Frankfurt. She lived in Germany, and it describes Anne as Jewish. Jewish is another kind of religion, or Judaism is the religion. So just like people are Christian, some people are Catholic, some people don't believe in religion at all. Anne's family, they were Jewish, so that was their religion. But when Anne was 4 years old, an ugly man with a little black mustache became the leader of her country. His name was Adolf Hitler. He hated the Jews and wanted them to all disappear. So this man made it really difficult for Jewish people to live in Germany. He was very prejudiced and discriminated against them, and so they were not treated fairly as other individuals in Germany. Anne's family moved away to Holland, which was a free country. Anne's father opened a new business, and they had a home where they felt safe. So that's Anne and her sister Margot and her. But one day the Nazis invaded half of Europe and arrived in Holland. Anne and all the other Jewish children were forced to go to separate schools and wear a star on their chest. And we know in our class we've studied Sylvia Mendez and we've studied other people who fought to desegregate schools. But we know that when people are separated based on how they look or a religion that they believe in, that's called segregation. And so these Jewish individuals, Jewish children, were discriminated against just because of their religion. For Anne's 13th birthday, Anne's parents gave her a diary. That day she discovered the pleasure of writing on her own. Anne wrote in her diary about how her family lived in fear of being arrested. They decided to leave their home and move to a secret annex, which is another word for like a closet or like a small space, behind a bookshelf at the building where her father worked. My question to you readers tonight is, make an inference. Why do you think Anne's family needed to hide? What were they hiding from? Why did they need to hide in the secret annex? They had to share their tiny new home with another Jewish family and stay very, very quiet. They could not leave their hiding place in case anyone found them. Anne's diary kept her company, and she wrote in it for hours. She wanted to publish a book and become a famous writer. And any readers in my class, you know we studied another activist who used writing when they were dealing with a really hard time. So think about that activist if you remember. The one I was thinking of was Maya Angelou. But one day, Anne stopped writing. The Nazi soldiers had found them, and they were all arrested. Anne's diary was left behind in her room. The family was pushed onto a train full of people on its way to a concentration camp. It took 3 long days for them to arrive at the absolute worst place on earth. And a concentration camp was a place where Adolf Hitler had a lot of Jewish people go, and many of the Jewish people that went to the concentration camps did not survive. Many of them died. Anne's father, whose name was Otto, was the only member of his family to survive the terrible war. He found her diary and wept as he read what his young daughter had written. He decided to publish Anne's diary and share her story just as she would have wanted. The world had to know the true story of Anne Frank. Since then, millions of people have read and cried over the Diary of Anne Frank, the story of the little girl who dreamt of a better world. And it's been her diary has been translated into over 70 languages. So all over the world, people can read how Anne was feeling. And then here's just a little bit more information and timeline, and I'll read it here. It says Anne Frank, born 1929, and she died in 1945. So my mathematicians can figure out she died at a very, very young age in the concentration camps. Anneliese Frank was born in Germany to a happy family, but when she was 4, a cruel government called the Nazi Party came into power. It was led by a man named Adolf Hitler, a dictator who forced Germans to follow his unjust rule. The Nazis hated many races, especially Jews, and brought in discriminatory rules against them. Anne's family had to move to Holland in order to be safe. But in 1939, the Nazi Party started World War II and began invading other countries, including Holland. In 1942, things got worse, and the Frank family had to go into hiding. They hid in a secret annex tucked behind a bookshelf at Otto Frank's work. They hoped they wouldn't be arrested. This is where Anne kept her diary. She wanted to tell her story of the war and for people to read it. In 1944, German police broke into the annex and arrested Anne's whole family. They were all sent to concentration camps. Concentration camps were prisons where many Jews were forced to work. There was little food and lots of people, and diseases spread quickly. Most people did not survive. Anne died at the Bergen-Belsen camp in 1945, weeks before it was freed by Allied forces. After the war, Otto found her diary and published her story, as she would have wanted. Anne became one of the most loved diarists in the world and captured the hearts and minds of the public. She lives on through her words and in all those who read her story. And there's some really lovely pictures of Anne here in her timeline. So that's the story of Anne Frank. Kind of a sad story, but it's also a story of a young girl who believed in the power of her writing, and she was able to write and use her feelings and use her words to process all the emotions that she was going through. So this is Anne Frank. I hope you feel inspired by her tonight.